Welcome to End of Life University on YouTube. Today I'm sharing with you an interview I did in the past with Loretta Downs of Chrysalis End of Life Inspirations. We're talking all about how she is working to transform death and dying in the nursing home. This is an audio only interview, and also full disclaimer, it was done in the days before I had a nice microphone, so the sound quality isn't as good as you're used to, but the content is excellent. So I hope you'll tune in and listen to my conversation with Loretta Downs. Remember to hit the subscribe button and subscribe to this channel. Also, subscribe and leave a rating and review for the podcast wherever you happen to listen to that. And if you're inclined to throw a little bit of financial support our way, you can go to eoluniversity.com/support and find 3 different ways you can make a small contribution to help keep us on the air. So here we go with Loretta Downs. Hello, this is Dr. Karen Wyatt, and I am honored today to welcome my guest for today's conversation about the Chrysalis Room, Creating Sacred Space for the Dying. My guest is Loretta Downs, who is the creator of the Chrysalis Room, and we'll be learning a lot more about that in our interview. But first, I'll tell you a little bit more about Loretta. She is an internationally recognized inspirational speaker, writer, facilitator, and consultant on the subject of supporting the end-of-life experience with comfort and dignity. Ms. Downs is a storyteller with extraordinary experiences that suffuse her lively presentations with love, compassion, hope, and wisdom. Her inspiring perspective on the end of life is informed by over 25 years of being with the dying and the people who care for them. She has been a companion to AIDS patients, friends, family, hospice patients, and nursing home residents, supporting them through the end of their lives. 6 years of caring for her mother in a nursing home moved her to found Chrysalis End of Life Inspirations to advocate for private rooms in nursing homes and hospitals, creating sacred space for keeping vigil with the dying. Ms. Downs retired from a successful business career in the merchandise mart to study dying and death. She holds a master's degree in gerontology and is past president of the Chicago End-of-Life Care Coalition. She is a Meta Institute certified end-of-life care practitioner, a graduate of Roshi Joan Halifax's Being with Dying program, and a certified Respecting Choices advanced care planning facilitator. And you can learn more about the Chrysalis Room and about Loretta Downs also at her website, which is endoflifeinspirations.com. And I'll repeat that later on in the interview so that everyone can go there and check it out. So Loretta, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Karen. I'm just delighted to be here.
Well, ever since I first heard about the Chrysalis Room concept, I've been wanting to talk to you to learn more about it. So I'm very excited for our conversation today. And your bio told us a little bit of your story, but I was hoping you'd go a little bit more in depth about how you got interested in working with the end of life, how you go from working a business career in the merchandise mart to doing end of life work.
I was surprised by all of this myself. I think somewhere within me, I've always been drawn to old people, and part of that is watching people as they're aging, growing closer to death and eventually dying. But beyond that, even when I worked in the mart and I was in the home fashion industries, in the 1980s, AIDS came through. And many of my friends and business associates were victims of the disease. And I was able, because I was in sales, to be available for them, so I could take them to doctor's appointments, take them to anything, and go to the parties. There were some great parties being thrown. And I became an observer of this process, and it really fascinated me. And a few years later, I became a volunteer on an AIDS ward at a hospital here in Chicago, and we had 19 beds on that floor, and I watched amazing care being given to these mostly men, and just spent time sharing with families and watching the different experiences. And I noticed 2 things, that some of the patients were having terrible physical symptoms. They were having conflict with their families. They were suffering in psychospiritual, emotional, and physical ways. And then there were other patients who were having parties in their room. And people were coming. They had a lot of visitors, and people would bring decorations. We'd let them sneak in small dogs sometimes. And I saw this tremendous amount of living going on for those people. And they were being supported in this journey. And that led me to become a hospice volunteer, because most of those kinds of patients eventually went into hospice care. And I thought, well, this is curious. I'm going to find out more about hospice. And I became a hospice volunteer just at the time my mother went into long-term care. That was probably the biggest turning point in what became later and now is a career for me. And I just retired. I was 50 years old. It was 2000. And my mother moved into a nursing home, which, of course, is a difficult change for any family to have to go through. And because I had time, I was there 5 days a week. And I tended to go in the evening. I got free dinners. And I met all these other residents and their loved ones and watched what happens what can happen in a nursing home. It was amazing. That's what started all of this.
Wow, I have goosebumps in a way, because I've spoken with many other people through End of Life University and heard so many similar stories about people being inspired to work with the end of life because of the AIDS crisis. And so it really seems like in some ways this our modern movement toward end of life has been called forth in a way because of experiences in the past through the AIDS crisis. Many of us have been inspired and rallied to start working in this arena to try and make a difference and change things.
It's true. So many of the victims in that early period were young men that, in the early stages of their lives, just starting to bloom. And I think that's where it was easy to rally. Whereas with old people, there's this fear of aging. There's a definite fear of nursing homes. 60% of the people in nursing homes have no visitors, and 50% of them have no close living relative. It can be a very abandoned population, and that's why the nursing home becomes home for these people. Mm-hmm. Many of the residents make relationships with the staff, and they are like having daughters and sons and sisters and brothers. I've seen some amazing things occur between a staff person and a resident in a nursing home, and that also inspired me. And at the time, because I'd become a hospice volunteer and I was doing home visits, I was also able to see what you see all the time, how transformational dying can be for everyone who's involved and who's near it. And I wanted to bring that to the nursing home.
Absolutely. That's really beautiful. And I know in some of my previous experiences with the nursing homes, I've seen some of them have been reluctant to have their own residents die within the nursing home. So they call an ambulance when someone seems close to death and send them off to a hospital. I don't know if you experienced that as well.
Oh, yes. Yes. I don't have statistics, but the percentage of people who are sent from nursing homes to hospitals is very high. The emergency rooms really do take a lot of the very old and the very sick, and it's a frightening experience. It's not the kind of quality of death that people want. In fact, if you ask, I think 70% of us want to die at home with family, and the nursing home becomes home for so many residents, and this is one more step they can take to allow the residents to die at home surrounded by loved ones, even if the only loved ones they have are the staff. And many nursing homes have double rooms. Mm-hmm. That was another thing that moved me about this, that I saw the need for privacy at this transitional period for the last week or days of life.
So tell us what a chrysalis room is exactly, and maybe you could describe what a typical chrysalis room would look like and how it would differ from the ordinary rooms in a nursing home.
Well, first of all, it is private, and it's spacious. It really doesn't have to be huge, but it has to be able to accommodate family members so they can be there in comfort. Many of them have a sofa that converts to a bed, or they'll offer a rollout bed for a loved one who wants to spend the night. Sometimes family comes in from very far away, and they don't want to leave once they get there. They want to be present through the whole process. And sometimes family live, miles from the nursing home, and going back and forth is stressful on them. So I think it's important to have accommodations that people can spend the night. It's aesthetic. It's got nice furniture in it and soft lighting, and ideally a view into nature. It's got, they offer hospitality for the family. Many of my nursing homes will bring coffee, thermoses, and soft drinks. They have a refrigerator in the room so family can bring food or they can order in easily. It's about having support for not only the person who's dying, who is now getting heightened comfort, and ideally is in hospice care, although there are many communities that don't have hospices available to them. I'm finding growing interest there. But it's about having a supported end-of-life experience, and that includes supporting the family and the staff and the other residents, because having a large enough room, residents can come in their wheelchairs. When my mother was dying, at one point we had about 7 residents in there, and I think I was the only Catholic in the room, but they said the rosary with me because my mother loved the rosary so much. It's an amazing sacred space. It can be, they can spend a little money. Very often nursing homes will ask for donations from families to provide the furnishings. It's got artwork, nice pastoral signs, butterflies on the wall. It's really about comfort and quiet and serenity, tranquility, and the sacred ground so people, the loved ones, can do the work they need. I love this quote, Glenn London. She says, "Dying is a spiritual experience with medical implications."
That's perfect. I love that. Now, you conceived of the Chrysalis Room while your mother was in the nursing home, and was she able to die in the Chrysalis Room that you imagined?
She was, and I have a 3.5-minute video on my website of photos I took during the last 8 days of her life and the hours after her death. And this is the kind of thing people don't see. Every day we turn on the television, we open the newspaper, and we see violent death. And it's very seldom that we're able to witness something that is supported and peaceful and participated in. And my mother's transition was it was meaningful to everyone who saw it, and for her it was what she wanted. It was what she wanted.
When you came up with this idea, how open did you find the nursing home to creating a separate room, a separate space for dying?
Before I thought of this, I had been participating in some other dying with some other residents, because my mom was there 6 years, and she's 2000, and in 2005, some of her very close friends were dying. And one of them had 2 daughters that had also become friends with all of us. This also goes to show that the nursing homes become community. It's something people get involved with each other. And Marcy was dying, and my mom was a hospice patient 3 times before she died, and this was the 2nd time, and I moved into a room. I brought a mattress to sleep on, and Marcy was dying at 5 in the morning. I went to check on her, and her breathing had declined. She was hardly breathing, and I called her daughters, and they came. And the 3 of us were sitting in a room. One was squeezed up against a wall, trying to hold her mother's hand in the bed. The other one was against a curtain and an oxygen machine on the other side, and we were trying not to disturb her roommate. And I was sitting at the foot of the bed with my knees against the bedboard, and we were whispering stories about Marcy, and they were holding her hand and stroking her. And I sat there thinking, this just is not the best it could be. And even though everybody was there, we were all pretty comfortable, and her roommate wouldn't move. And I later learned that Marcy was the third person that had died in that roommate's room.
Oh, wow.
Right. It's not what any of us want. And then another person died, and she was a single woman I'd become very friendly with her. She used to visit her sister. Her sister had been a resident there for years, and then she had a stroke, became a resident. And I was watching out for her. Her brother was flying in from another city. She had a whole slew of girlfriends, and she was in a shared room, and there was nowhere for anyone to go when they came to visit her. So the nursing home, I pleaded with them, and I didn't have to work too hard because the woman, Cheryl Morris, who had been the vice president of operations, said, we've been thinking about doing something like this. So they allowed the money, and I went shopping, and it became a reality.
Wow, it's just such a beautiful concept. And as you said, in my experience with nursing homes in the past, I found as well that there was a real community and a family feeling amongst the patients and the staff. And so I agree with you that the residents of a nursing home need to be able to die there because it is their home. It is the place where they're most comfortable, and they will see familiar faces of people who know them and love them and want to be present during their last days of life. And so it seems vitally important that we help nursing homes be able to accommodate the dying process in a way that does support the comfort and dignity of the patient.
It is. And then the other residents see this kind of care, and they can be confident it's available to them. That's, I think, we can't stress the value on that, because everyone is afraid they're going to die in a hospital. Everyone's afraid of dying at some level. Even I am, even though I've been studying it for so long and I'm very comfortable with it. I don't know what it's going to be like when I get there, but in the long-term care settings, they see people come and go, and they disappear.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. There's really no recognition of that important process at the transforming at the end of life. And this allows it to be a part of the community.
And I could imagine, you mentioned before that it's better for the staff as well, because I can imagine it's distressing for the staff when a patient disappears and they're taken off to the hospital, and the staff will never see that person again. And when someone's been a resident there for 6 years, you feel close to that person. And so it allows the staff an opportunity to have a resolution and to say goodbye and offer the very last moments of care that patient will receive.
Absolutely. And there's an element of anticipatory grief that helps us through the process of having someone die. So if a resident's in the Chrysalis Room for, let's say, a week, which is ideal, certainly 5 days is lovely. The staff is coming in and out, and they're getting ready. They're grieving already, as is the family. Mm-hmm. So having this sacred space, and it's interesting, every single family that moves into a Chrysalis Room sets up a little altar. They find a shelf or a table or a windowsill, and they inevitably bring flowers, some religious objects, pictures, family pictures, and they set up this little space, and it makes it, it creates that sacredness.
Mm-hmm. It's so beautiful, and there's room to do that, and then permission to do that, which they might not feel in a shared room with another patient.
There's no space.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there isn't even one chair that doesn't have things on it in a double room. There's really, and then everyone's worrying about the roommate. One family told me a story. They were in a double room, and they came in to keep vigil with their dad, and the roommate on the other side, his family came to celebrate his birthday. And everyone was uncomfortable. How do we do this? How do we honor the birthday? How do we honor this family that's trying to keep vigil? And it's unsettling. Plus, there's so much that goes on for the family. They make connections. People heal old wounds in this setting.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
The kind of reconciliation I've seen, and the storytelling, and kind of happiness and joy with the memories that goes on, and pulling out all the old family pictures. You need space to do that.
Absolutely. And so for the many patients who cannot be cared for at home for whatever reasons, because there's not a 24/7 caregiver, or family members don't live close enough and can't be there, there are many patients who will need to die in a nursing home. That might be the only facility available to them. But it doesn't have to be, as I think as many in our society imagine it to be, as a horrible death. It can be beautiful and sacred, as you're describing, through the use of a special room.
It's true, and the nursing homes are definitely, there's a revolution going on there, because they have a lot of competition now with senior care and senior housing, and there is a movement to improve the culture of long-term care. And one number I picked up was 25% of us are now dying in nursing homes, and that number is expected to go to 40% by 2020.
Wow.
Yeah. And so they need to be hospices. They need to provide this extra comfort care at the end of life for the residents, and also provide the kind of space where families can be there and the other residents can watch this process and participate in it.
So what are you seeing? Is this concept growing in nursing homes across the country?
It is. For one thing, it's reducing hospitalization at the end of life. And I think the nursing homes want that to happen, and the hospitals want that to happen. They don't want to take people in the emergency room who are going to die that day or a few days later, because the hospitals don't really have space for the dying. Some are starting to offer palliative care rooms, not many rooms, and they have them on a medical floor. So it's not quite the same. And removing someone from their home is just kind of unkind, I think. In fact, the reason I call it the Chrysalis Room is because I started raising my butterflies while my mom was in the nursing home, and which is a wonderful process. And I would bring some there, and we'd watch the caterpillars become chrysalis and then turn into butterflies, and I'd have these release parties. I thought that's exactly what happens. Everyone has a chrysalis stage at the end of life. You go into that quiet space, and this room is meant to be that holding space, that, and I keep calling it sacred ground because it is. And then there's that final transformation.
I love that, and I love being able to watch the life cycle of the monarch butterfly and view that chrysalis stage. It's such a great teaching concept for people who have a fear of death, to be able to witness it and let them see this new emergence after the chrysalis. There's a new transformation.
Yes. There's a TEDx talk on my website that is very much directed at that process, so I would suggest people go in search of that. But in addition to the transformational aspect of the dying process and reduced hospitalizations, it's about support and having more support for people at the end of life. And that's the primary goal of the Chrysalis Room, and not only the person who's dying, but everybody in it. I get feedback from nursing homes and families of how grateful they are to have had this space to do what they need to do to be with their loved ones. And it's consistent. The staff in the nursing homes, the nursing home administrators, there's pride for them in having this space. And some of them understand that it's not used all the time, and they find other uses for it when it's not being used. Central Baptist Village, which has done a beautiful project, they hired their architects to do the room. And there's a presentation that Dawn Zimmerman and I, she's the administrator of the nursing home, have done at a couple national conferences. That's also on my website. And these architects, Perkins Eastman, got behind this and have spoken to a lot of nursing homes about including that in future plans. So the community, the sense of gratitude, I think having the space creates a sense of naturalness in the dying process, that this is a human process that we need to know how to do, learn how to do, be present for.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so it seems that this idea of creating a sacred space for the dying process, it could be done as elaborately as you said, hiring an architect and creating a specially designed room. But are there some who've also made it very simple? I remember you said that you found a storage space in the nursing home where your mother was that could be used. So I'm thinking, is it possible for some nursing homes to do it with a low budget option if it's not possible for them to design a more elaborate space?
Absolutely. In fact, many of them already have enough furniture. They move a hospital bed out of one room and chairs. I think having a comfortable sofa that turns into a bed or like a day bed setting where people would have enough room. Some of them use the geriatric chairs that recline. It really doesn't have to be architecturally digest. People donate artwork for the walls. Some of I've been told that they have resident groups that do quilting, and they'll make blankets, quilting or crocheting, and they'll make blankets for the patient who's in that room. And they keep a stock of them, and then they're given to the family after the death.
Oh,
Isn't
wow.
that beautiful?
That's beautiful.
They create rituals and systems within the nursing home to make this better, and they personalize it. What else? Leaving the Chrysalis Room, creating a ritual for removing the body from the nursing home through the front door instead of out the back door where it usually has been going, and creating a shroud that can go over it, and ringing a bell so that the residents who don't want to be part of that can close their doors, and the other ones often walk out in an honor guard with the body.
Wow. That's beautiful. I love the idea that it's giving purpose to the other residents as well to participate in this process with the friends that they now have, their new family members in the nursing home, and to be able to be part of it and participate, and then even to create something that becomes part of the ritual.
I took care of two siblings who had Huntington's disease, and they both died before my mother did. And it was so important when Gabriel died that his sister saw a beautiful death and a ritual. And when he died, family called, the church came, a number of family members. He was 28 years old, and she was at the time 26. And something came into my head to do a flower petal ritual, and there were always flowers in the house. So I pulled all the petals off and put them in a tissue box and gave the box to Janet, and she stood in his room. And for everyone who came in, the idea was that they would take some flower petals and sprinkle them on his body in his bed as a final offering of friendship, so that when everyone had left, before they removed his body, he was covered in flower petals. And that's what she was able to remember and give her some comfort about the death that she was going to be experiencing in the not distant future. And she did die 2 years later, and her cousin, who at the time was 7 or 8 years old, was given, she said, "Can I hold the flower petals, Loretta?" And we did the same thing for Janet. And that's what her mother is left with. Their mother is left with the scene. And some of the nursing homes do that in the Chrysalis Rooms, so that the families and the residents who are there create this ritual of a gift, something that they're doing, and the last view that the family has is of their loved one just in a flower bed.
Wow, that is beautiful. So creative of you to think of that idea in the moment.
It's amazing what happens, isn't it? Isn't it? But I think this is a robust experience, being with someone who's dying. it's privileged. It's like watching a birth.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that was another inspiration I had for the Chrysalis Room. A couple of years earlier, a close friend of mine gave birth to her first child, and she had a lot of anxiety, and she asked me to come over while she was in labor. Her husband was there, and I did. And she was in a birthing room. You know, hospitals are building these beautiful Ritz-Carlton kind of birthing rooms, and I thought, well, we should have birthing out rooms.
Mm-hmm.
So that was also part of the inspiration for doing it.
Yes, absolutely. I can see a big need for this sort of room in hospitals as well, because I think right now so many patients they die in the ICU where there are monitors and noises and, you know, rushed people around them, or in a regular hospital room. But I just think to even create the sacred space, to dedicate that space for the dying process, as you say, to make it sacred, is to honor the dying of everyone in the future as well who will be using the space. And so that alone, just to be taken to that beautiful space, transforms the process of dying.
It does. It allows people to go deep within themselves in a way, like you said, the creativity with the flower petals. That happened. I didn't plan that. And I think when we're in focus space, people are praying, they're meditating, they're hoping, they're uncomfortable, they're unfamiliar, that having that quiet space and being with someone who's taking their last breaths is powerful.
Mm-hmm.
It's a human experience, and we've been removed from it.
Absolutely, to our detriment as a society, I believe, because every person I know who has been a witness to the dying process and been part of hospice just has much less fear in life and much more spiritual depth, I guess I would say, about how to live life and what's important in life.
Oh, yes, that's true. I think Socrates said, if you want to know how to live, learn how to die.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. And I've seen that with the families who come back to me, and people have said, I'm not afraid to die anymore.
Which is really our goal for all of this work. It's to help ease that fear of dying so that everyone can participate in this natural process and not avoid it or run away from it.
That's true. I'm on a mission. This isn't a business for me. I'm very fortunate. And I don't want to sell furniture. I did that for 30 years. But I want to inspire the people who work in long-term care settings and hospital settings to see what I'm doing. And I think that many of them see that it's just the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Loretta, do you have any idea right now how many nursing homes offer a Chrysalis Room? Or I suppose there could be a lot of them that you don't know about or haven't heard of.
I think they are. Just last month, I picked up 2 articles about new nursing homes, and this is interesting. But I don't know because I haven't set up a system. Like I said, this is not a business for me. I've spoken at countless conferences now to thousands of people, and I know many of them have gone back and said we need to do something. It might not happen right away, but I think it's happening. But I found a Chrysalis Room that was built in the Powell Valley, Wyoming Care Center. Now, Powell has a population of 6,300 people. They don't have hospices.
Wow.
To take, right. So two of their personnel had been at one of my presentations, and they went back, and it's taken them, I think she said, 3 years to get this done. But they posted an article in their local newspaper, which I was able to pick up on my alerts, and they're already using it. And then the other day, I got a notice from Harrisburg, Virginia, population 2,700, and they built a compassion room at the community hospital. So it is happening in places that I don't know about. And that keeps me going. Just when I think, I'm not making any progress here, no one's getting it. And my website is very useful. People can go there and get information about how to start a Chrysalis Room, see examples of Chrysalis Rooms.
And I'll mention the URL again. It's endoflifeinspirations.com. If anyone wants to go there. I was wondering, Loretta, do you have suggestions? What if someone out there is a family member who has a loved one in a nursing home and they would love to see that nursing home create a Chrysalis Room, because that's how you started this project? What would you recommend they do to try to get through to the nursing home administrators and initiate a project like this?
Look at the slideshow of my mother's last week of life and share it with the nursing home administrator. Because it shows what happened. It shows the staff being present. It showed other residents being there. It showed the different ways different people gave my mother care, and it showed her how comfortable she was. And the few pictures that happened after she died happened. Her hospice nurse was scheduled to come that day. She didn't even know Mother had died, and she showed up about an hour after Mom died. We'd made all the phone calls, and she started to bathe her. And there are pictures of this. It's like my mother was a queen being bathed. And Margaret was doing what she does. Margaret Tunney, she worked as a hospice aide at that point in time, 17 years.
Wow.
She was like a priest offering Mass. It was so beautiful. And residents came and went, and we did the flower petal ceremony on my mom. That was 10 years ago, and it still moves me to think about how her friends and the staff came and how much it meant to them. In fact, we had to make the funeral director wait to take her away until bingo was over so Muriel could come and say goodbye. It's the last picture. But the story told in these pictures is it's moving. And I think it makes people think differently about dying.
So that might be something someone could use if they wanted to make a presentation to their local nursing home about the value of having a Chrysalis Room. They could actually get resources on your website, find these photos and slides, and show that to encourage people, to help them understand what it is, but to encourage them to move in that direction.
Oh, yes, and they can contact me. I'm more than happy to help people with this. And like I said, I don't make money doing this. I just want to inspire and motivate people to create this sacred space in long-term care and hospitals where people can die supported by staff and loved ones and in peace and tranquility.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to emphasize, too, as we talk about sacred space, we're not talking about any one religion or another. It's a space that everyone can use regardless of their religious affiliation. It's a space that's held there for everyone to bring their own beliefs into the space and utilize it during the dying process, and no one would be excluded or limited from that space.
That's exactly it. You know, it's a universal experience, no matter what faith a person has. The process of watching someone die or of dying is very much shared.
So if there were, say, someone from a nursing home staff listening to this interview who said, we have to do this at our nursing home right now, you are available for questions if people want a little guidance on how to create this?
Absolutely. My contact information is on the website. They can email me. They can call me. I'm more than happy. And I said I'm on a mission, Karen, and I know that the outcome of this benefits more than the person who's dying. And it's like it'll ripple out like a pebble in the water. I get the feedback. I hear this from the people who've experienced this kind of. It's the Chrysalis Room is actually a hospice unit in one room. Mm-hmm. Whereas a hospice unit has multiple rooms, and they'll have a sitting area for people, maybe a little kitchen, for hospitality, or someone's put out a tray of cookies and thermos of coffee. That's all in this one room.
And it seems like for most nursing homes, that's really all that's necessary. One room that's utilized over and over again for any patient who needs it. And it doesn't require much more than that, just one room.
That's true. There have been occasions where the room was occupied and somebody else needed a room. And nursing homes then will move a roommate out or move the person who's dying into another room where they have privacy. But that doesn't happen very often, I think. One nursing home that I visited has a library, which is it's set up as a library, and it was a pretty good-sized room. And when they had someone dying, they would move their bed in there because it had multiple chairs and a table where family could sit, and it was in a quiet corner of the nursing home. So there's another way to have a flex room. That was very attractive.
Yeah, very interesting idea. And I would think, as you mentioned before, because long-term care facilities are having to compete with one another more and more for patients, that this is something every facility would be so proud to have and would be so honored to mention to people that they offer this.
When I first got the Chrysalis Room at the Fairmont where my mother lived, it was 2005, right before she died, because that was part of my motivation too. I wanted her to be able to experience it. The woman who was the admissions director wouldn't take potential clients, the families of potential residents, there and show them that. She said, I can't tell them we have a hospice room. They're upset already. That'll upset them more. Well, now that's part of the tour, and we offer private rooms for end-of-life care. So things are changing. That's very good.
Yes, very interesting. I'm so glad to hear that. Well, I would love to see a Chrysalis Room or something similar in every nursing home, but also in every hospital. I think it's really important. I think it's not realistic to think we're going to suddenly have every person dying in their own home. I don't think that's possible. We don't have enough caregivers to go around. And so we need to be able to convert the spaces where people die right now into sacred spaces that can honor the process of dying.
I think it's important that we all start looking at our own desires for the end of our life, and advanced care planning is a really big part of that. And in long-term care, it's got to not only for the residents who come in, but the staff. And because we have to build a familiarity with dying that we've lost. Historically, everybody took care of the elders and the dying at home. Well, now we have, everybody's working, we have distance, geography. People, most of my friends don't have children living in Chicago anymore. They're all over the country. And so this is an obstacle to having family be able to keep vigil and care. And as you point out, we're not going to have enough paid caregivers. So the nursing homes are going to be places that need to provide this kind of comfort. And doing advanced care planning gets us familiar. It makes us think about, well, yeah, what do I want? What kind of treatment do I want at the end of my life? Where do I want to be? Who do I want to be there? Who do I trust to speak for me if I can't speak for myself and I'm in a hospital? And the more we do this, the more familiar we become with the end of life, and the less we want to avoid it. I think there's a natural desire to go into it.
Absolutely. And just as you're saying, even in the nursing home where your mother died, now the end of life room, the hospice room is something that they're proud to show to everyone who wants to come there, because our attitudes are changing and we're opening our minds a little more to the naturalness of the dying process.
It's true. It's great public relations. Families are all satisfied. which is not always the case when people go into long-term care. I remember when my mother first went in, oh my gosh, I was so crabby about everything. Nothing was right. And then she was crabby, and my sister was crabby. And it took us months before we settled down and realized how hard all these people were working to enhance the quality of my mother's life. And that's what nursing homes, that's their mission, to keep the highest quality of life for the residents that they can. And it's time for them to consider the highest quality of death for their residents.
Absolutely. Well, Loretta, what can the rest of us do to help you with this mission of yours? Me, for example, I live in an area that we don't even have a nursing home or long-term care facility where I live. And so are there ways that we can be supportive of this movement? I mean, interviewing you is one way I could support you, but for others out there who say, I want to help move this forward, do you have any thoughts about what we could do to support you?
Well, I think sharing my website, I have a Chrysalis End of Life Inspirations Facebook page, sharing the information on it with anybody who know. I think families are, unfamiliar. We don't witness dying so much, and your mom or dad dies once, and we don't get educated for it. And on my Facebook page, I post all kinds of articles and exciting. There's a lot more being written about end of life and advanced care planning than ever before. So I think that's one way to do it. I think, again, doing your own advanced care planning so you get more familiar with dying and what it's about. Read your book, Karen.
Thank you.
What matters most, really.
Yeah.
There are ways to stop being afraid of dying and look at it as a transition like the monarch butterfly makes. It's a natural thing. If we all have to die, it cannot be a bad thing. What's happened is we're not making it the sacred transition and supporting it the way humans used to. And it's time to take it out of the medical institutions and make it something that's an act of love.
Yes, absolutely. And I really believe this change has to start from the ground up. It's going to come from the grassroots and from consumers and from just ordinary people making changes. I think that will happen before the medical system will begin to change its attitudes about death and dying.
That's so true. It's so true. And social change, social movements take place because people rise up together. Mm-hmm. You think about car seats and cigarettes and condoms even. That there was a time when I remember my mother saying, that was a dirty word. Mm-hmm. What's a condom, Mom? Yeah, we've come a long way. I was walking on the lakefront during a Lollapalooza concert, and there was one of those flying planes with ads on it. It was a Trojan ad. So I'm thinking if that can be happening, there can be Chrysalis Rooms everywhere.
That is true. That's so true.
Yeah. We just have to start demanding it.
Yes, and so each one of us who hears about this concept, we can also just talk to people that we know, because we probably, every one of us knows someone who has a loved one who's entering a nursing home or already in a nursing home. And we can tell everyone we know about this concept. We can encourage people, go to the nursing home administration and ask them if they would consider creating a special room, and keep agitating and asking for it, because that is how change will happen.
That's what I did. I just asked, and I thought it was fortunate. I only had to ask once. Some of the nursing homes also use this room for quiet time for staff or family members. Sometimes, something, I can remember going to the nursing home one day, I put my hand on the door and I said, I just can't go back in there again. It was too hard. And there was no place I could go and sit and be quiet. Central Baptist Village takes their dementia residents and staff volunteers do hand massages in this room because it's such a peaceful, pretty space. So
very nice. So there are all kinds of ways to be creative with this idea and the space, and I'm sure it's something different in every nursing home, and they find a way to create it. But we need the catalyst for it. So we need a lot more people out there with this idea in mind and speaking up about it and asking, why doesn't your nursing home have a space or a room for the sacred process of dying?
Karen, from your lips to God's ears.
Absolutely. Well, Loretta, I just want to thank you so much for the work that you're doing, for being so passionate and being on this mission for so many years and making a difference in the world, making an impact in how people die.
Thank you. I consider it to be a great gift that I was brought to this work. And I thank all of my friends and teachers, and they're dead. So they live through me.
Mm-hmm. Well, you definitely are honoring them with your work. And so it's been my privilege to just talk about it with you and share it with everyone out there who's listening. And I'm hopeful and excited that this will spark some ideas in people's minds, and they'll go out and start creating changes in their own communities.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
So thank you, Loretta. I've been talking with Loretta Downs, who is the creator of the Chrysalis Room, and the website, again, to learn more about Loretta's work, the Chrysalis Room, and get access to her contact information is endoflifeinspirations.com. So please go there and check it out. It's a beautiful website, and you'll find lots and lots of resources there. So Loretta, thank you again for taking time out to talk with me today, and I hope we have a chance to meet again someday in the future.
Thanks, Karen. I would enjoy that very much.
Same here, and thank you to everyone listening in today. It's been a privilege to share this talk with you. So until the next time, take care and goodbye.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Loretta Downs. And I, for one, was really touched about her ideas for changing death and dying in the nursing home. And having been a nursing home medical director in the past, I can say this is desperately needed all around our country. So thanks for bearing with me with the limited sound quality on that interview. But remember, I'll be back next week with another interview for you. So until then, remember that we're here for love. So face your fear, be ready for whatever life brings you next, and love each and every moment of your precious life. Bye-bye.